Welcome to our Power Tools service video here from the Trumpf Power Tools. Today we would like to discuss and talk about our TPC, the Trumpf Panel Cutter 165. With the Trumpf Panel Cutter 165 it's possible to cut sandwich panels with a PUR and PIR material between two sheets, with a maximum of thickness of these sheets of 0.9 millimeter. It is actually a system which we are using a saw chain to cut the sandwich panels, and of course this saw chain, as well as some other bearing parts, needs to be changed from time to time. And this is what I would like to show you here with that video, in order that you can do it properly on your machine. We have here the TPC, and TPC, you see, we can bring out the sword, we can bring out the sword with a saw chain, and most important is of course safety, and for that reason always, if you do maintenance work, take off the machine from the power supply. Yeah, the bearing parts of that machine is the saw chain itself, it is the sword, it is actually the wearing plate as well as the guide plates. These are the main parts in regards to wear and tear of this TPC 165. And I would like to show you how to change the sword as well as the saw chain. For that we have at the back of the machine already the tool included, so there is no requirement to search in your toolbox for the respective tool. You can easily use that tool, which also reduces the time during the maintenance work. So first of all, we're opening that housing here. Underneath that housing we have the clamping system for the saw chain as well as the holder for the sword. You see here the chain wheel, actually, where we have the saw chain is the driving system. We have here actually in that area the clamping system to clamp the sword and respectively fix the sword and clamp the saw chain. So in order to take the sword out, there is a screw here which we actually open, and you can easily see then the clamping pin goes up, and the sword is also going inside the machine now when I screw here, and that means the saw chain is not clamped anymore. The more you screw here, the better. The more the pin comes up, it's better, it's more easier to take away or to take out the sword together with the saw chain. So now easily it can be removed from the machine, and we have the sword as well as the saw chain in our hand. So now just separate very easily the sword from the saw chain. And first of all, I would like to talk a little bit about the saw chain itself. So the saw chain is coming with several elements, single elements, which are fixed together in a very proper way, in a very special process here in-house at Trumpf, to ensure that it's a long lifetime and that there is no possibility that the saw chain can be cut. When the saw chain is actually blunt, it has to be changed. There is no possibility to regrind the saw chain. So a new one has to be brought into the machine, put into the machine respectively, after the saw chain is blunt. Then we have the sword. At the sword it's very, very much important that you have a look here onto the oil channel. Here, and this hole actually, you see where the saw chain is normally located, there is also a small hole inside where the oil goes through and is doing the lubrication of the saw chain. So this hole has to be open all the time so that the oil can easily go onto the saw chain, and we have a good lubrication of the saw chain in order to ensure a high lifetime of the saw chain. If the saw chain runs dry without an oil, it reduces the lifetime of the saw chain drastically. So please ensure that here the oil can always come to the saw chain. If there is actually some dust or material inside here in that hole, you just use some compressed air can where you can actually take it out, or you just take a needle or something where you can take off the material from that oil hole. Then we have also the chain wheel here underneath the sword on the bottom side, which needs to be checked whether it's still running properly. This is now perfect, so we can use the sword. And during the cutting, we have mainly in that area the sheet metal, and there it can happen that you have some burrs here coming up from the sheet metal. So if this comes up and you see that and there is no big damage of the material of the sword, you can actually grind it away just to ensure that there is no burr. If there is already a hole inside, then what you can do in the first step, you can turn the sword 180 degrees and put it inside the machine in this direction, so you can use the sword 2 times. One time like this. If there we have some wear and tear on the sword, you can just turn it so it doubles the lifetime of the sword respectively. Alright, so everything is fine here with the sword. We can still actually use it, and we have now replaced the saw chain with a new one, and now it's quite important to see the direction of the saw chain. The direction is very much important, so that the sheet is cut properly, or the material is cut properly, and we have a good lifetime of the saw chain. So first of all, there are 2 things where you can check whether you are correct. The first thing is actually here with the arrows, which is coming above this wheel here. You see the arrows, so in this direction the chain has to move, and you also see here a picture how the chain should look like if you put it actually here. Secondly, we have on the chain also arrows on some elements of the chain, which you actually can see here. So you see that it's not good to put it in that direction, so it will go like this. So we have always to use the arrows. So here you see actually it has to go in this direction. And this is exactly what is mentioned here above this wheel. And from that perspective, we can now put the saw chain onto the sword. Which is quite easy, so you can just put it on. There is no clamping or something which you have to take care of. Just put the saw chain on the sword here, press it a little bit so that it's tight, and now you can go actually into the machine with a little angle here. You go inside, and now when we have a look here at the clamping system with the pin of the clamping system, we have to fix the sword respectively. Here you see the pin for the clamping, so you have to put it inside there, and this pin is actually moving up and down for the clamping system respectively. So the first thing, I bring it on, keep it here with my fingers, and then we can move the clamping pin into the direction outside. So now the sword moves outside the machine so that we are getting a good clamping of the saw chain around the sword. So now if this is fixed then properly here, we can take away the hands actually, because it keeps by itself, and we can also bring on the housing for this clamping system and for the saw chain system, and put this back on. But don't tie the screw, just keep it a little bit open so that we still can do a clamping, because now we have to check whether we have done the clamping in a correct way. You see here, when I push the saw chain from the sword, you see it's too much. The distance between the sword and the saw chain, when I pull here, then it actually should be 3 millimeters maximum. So that's much more here. So from that reason, I use the tool here and do some more clamping into the plus direction. And now you see it's more tight actually, right? It's more tight. So now seems to be perfect. Then we close the housing. And for the second step, we on the machine and see whether it works properly. So, again, take off the plug from the power supply for safety reasons. And now we check it again and we see, yeah, it's quite okay. It's quite good. The 3 millimeters we actually have. Very much important is that after using the machine for 15 or 20 meters cutting, please check this clamping of the saw chain again, because it can happen, especially in the beginning, that the saw chain increases its length automatically during the cutting. So from that perspective, check it up, whether you still have the 3 millimeter here, and if not, please do a reclamping here, tighten the screw a little bit more, or loosen it respectively, mainly close it a little bit more, so you have a good clamping here. That's very, very much important, and also do this continuously, so that you have a good lifetime of the saw chain. So that was actually the saw chain itself. Then we also have here the varying parts, which are the varying plate and the varying plate front, and we have the guide plates. So here it's actually important when you change this that you push it really to the front, so that when the sword actually comes out of the machine, that it's not actually touching here this varying plate. This you actually must ensure when you change that varying plate. The varying plate can be easily removed. You see here the screws, just open it. And what is also important to know is that you can also turn it 180 degrees and use it the second time also. In the beginning, when you put on a new sword or a new saw chain, it might happen that you have some difficulties to bring out the machine, the saw chain and the sword here through that guide plate, this varying plate, that varying plate, and but this will go away within the first meters when you do the respective cutting. All right. Another very important topic is that check always if there is enough oil inside the oil box of the machine, because as I already mentioned, oil is quite important for this machine, especially for the lifetime of the saw chain. So check it continuously that there is enough oil inside. Yeah, that's it. In regards to changing the sword, changing the saw chain, changing the varying plate front, and the guide plate for the Trumpf panel cutter 165. More information as well as the documentation of this maintenance work you will also find in our manual, and further information about this machine you can also find on our homepage, which is www.trumpf-powertools.com. Thanks for watching.